Now, Mcebisi Jonas has responded to his appointment as South Africa's special envoy to the United States, saying he will do his best to promote a healthy working relationship between South Africa and the United States. He also thanked President Ramaphosa for entrusting him with what he calls an important but challenging role. Jonas, who is a former deputy finance minister, says is fully cognizant of the difficulties that lie ahead and appealed to South Africans to allow government time and space to engage fully with the various stakeholders. He previously served as one of the 4 presidential investment envoys appointed by President Ramaphosa back in 2018. And that was to facilitate investment into the country. Let's have a conversation now with Khulekani Mathe, who is the CEO of Business Unity South Africa. And let's talk about this appointment then of the special envoy to the United States, Mcebisi Jonas. Khulekani, appreciate your time. Good afternoon to you. The right appointment here?
Good afternoon, Arabile, and to the viewers. Yes, from where we stand, Mr. Jonas's appointment is the right appointment, and we congratulate him on this appointment. We say so because Mr. Jonas is a really hardworking man. He's also somebody who has a good understanding of the politics and also has a good understanding of business, having served in both the public and the private sector. He fully understands the importance of the United States to South Africa, the importance of making sure that we restore the relationship with the United States of South Africa. And so we do think that Jonas is a good appointment.
Yeah, what does it say then about South Africa's credentials? Going back to somebody who was former deputy finance minister, of course, it's going to be about messaging, of course, and cool heads and diplomacy, as we've continued to speak about over the last number of years. And of course, with trade, it being formally about business. Is this a situation where we're going to have to put that best foot forward, and Mcebisi Jonas is the right person for that because of the credentials he's had in Treasury?
Well, you know, Arabile, it's tricky. We know that, of course, there is the economic side to this, which we obviously represent, and I'll talk about that briefly, shortly. But we also know that the nature of the relationship at the moment with the United States is really challenged. And so he's going to have to work really hard to do a very fine balancing act between getting the politics right and making sure that that relationship is restored. Now, coming back to the economics of it, of course, we know that the United States is important to us for several reasons. One, the fact that they are the second largest trading partner of South Africa's, that we have a significant presence of the U.S. companies in South Africa. And thirdly, that, South Africa trades with the United States goods, finished products, as opposed to raw material, which really talks to something that we often discuss in this country about the fact that we do tend to export to other countries raw material. So when you take all of that together, it does show that this is a really important post for South Africa. And the fact that we haven't had a significant presence in Washington over the past couple of years does indicate how challenging this will be. Of course, recent developments with our now returned former ambassador is also an additional sort of layer of the complexity, because he's going to be watched every word he utters to see whether he is different from his predecessor. Of course, he's not an ambassador, he's an envoy, which means that he doesn't carry the same burden as the ambassador, but as an envoy of the president, representing the president, what he says will be understood to represent what the president says, thinks on the relationship with the United States.
What does this mean for the continuity, though, of foreign policy by South Africa? Is this still the same humble stance when you consider, yes, it's not the direct replacement of Ibrahim Rasool, but it becomes a conduit of the same nature?
There is no guarantee that he will ultimately be appointed as ambassador to the United States. But an important message here is that a fairly senior person, in terms of having been a former deputy minister, but also a senior business person is being sent to the US. It sends a message that we take that relationship very seriously. We want to build it. And so I think that bodes well for beginning to restore our relationship with Washington.
Trying to restore that relationship, though, Khulekani, has to be the fact that you have to have a willing audience that wants to listen to you. And the United States has been very adamant in not wanting to listen to South Africa, particularly of late, not really seeming willing to do so. So how much hope is there of really restoring relations when only one party is looking to sit at the negotiating table?
I don't want to pretend to be a foreign policy expert here, but what I do know is that the fact that we still have an embassy in Washington, there is an expectation that there will be representation of South Africa, and that through that representation, there will be engagements between Washington and Pretoria. And so although, as I've said, and I need to restate that he isn't a replacement of Mr. Ibrahim Rasool, but it does indicate that we do want to keep the diplomatic channels open so that there is continued interactions and with between the two capitals. Mr. Mcebisi Jonas is a right man for the job. He is experienced. He understands politics, but he also understands business. He has been the president's envoy, presidential envoys that were appointed some while ago. So he is entering a space that he is not unfamiliar with, but we understand that it is, it carries with it a great deal of complexity that he's going to have to navigate.
Yeah, because it becomes so difficult to navigate a space like this, one would imagine. But is this going to be business's interests? Is this going to be, let's call it capitalism's interests being put to the foreground here ahead of the country?
Mr. Jonas is appointed by the president. So he is a president's envoy to the US. He is going to, whenever he interacts with the US from here, from there, he will be representing the president. He is not an appointee of business. He is the president's appointee. He will carry to the White House the messages that the president wants conveyed to the White House.
Yeah, I mean, I only say that, of course, because he is, of course, in his private capacity still within business as well then. And, of course, that could play a crucial role. Do you think those interests, his leadership capacity and abilities as well, play a crucial role here in the relationship he's trying to build?
I would imagine that the president has taken a whole range of things into account in appointing him. He has fully and thoroughly assessed the situation in Washington and what would be required of a person that he sends there as his envoy. Taking, for instance, not just the understanding of politics, but making sure that he also has an understanding of business as he does. And so I believe, we certainly believe from a business point of view, that he is the person who is going to represent South Africa there, represent our president. And we wish him success, because his success is our success.
Yeah.
We are an economy that depends on trading with other nations for its own growth. We desperately need growth in this economy. So smoothing those relationships such that there is continued flow of goods between our nations is good for growth. And therefore, Mr. Jonas, we believe, will be able to play that role and do so effectively.
Khulekani Mathe, CEO of Business Unity South Africa. Thank you so much as we unpack that conversation then on Mcebisi Jonas, the former Deputy Finance Minister, being appointed then as the Special Envoy to the United States, and what has been a fractured relationship of late between the world #1 economy and, of course, South Africa.